You're listening to the Tim Webster Breakfast Show. And from 9am, Chris Smith across Australia on 2SM.
Yeah, coming up to 16 minutes after 7. Another very disturbing topic for us. And it has been this rise in anti-Semitic incidents fueled by, well, the unfolding unrest in the Middle East, of course. In one case, the Office of State Liberal MP Anthony Edwards was defaced with very hateful graffiti and vandalism targeting a photo of King Charles. Perhaps more concerningly, in another incident, a high school student shared a social media post featuring Nazi-themed football jerseys. Now, that's reignited urgent conversations that we need to have about anti-Semitism in our society, which has been deeply concerning. And on that, the role of education and how public discourse influences younger generations, which we've been discussing for pretty much the last half an hour. Robert Gregory, of the CEO of the Australian Jewish Association, joins me on the line now. G'day, Robert.
G'day.
Look, those two recent incidents have occurred across a broader cross-section of society, from schools, political officers, young and old, and most recently, the Muslim preacher Wasim Haddad. And you would have seen this, I'm sure, listeners on News last night, who has made fundamentally racist and anti-Semitic remarks in a series of lectures he gave in November last year, a month after the October 7 attacks in Gaza. So, what's the broader context you see of this rising wave, and disturbing as it is, of anti-Semitism in our country?
Well, you're exactly right. That's the way to see it, as a rising wave across all aspects of society. And the fact that it's occurring in school children is particularly concerning. It's less about the individual school children and more about the fact that it's not happening in a vacuum. Children do things based on what they see, based on the role models and what the adults are doing. So if there's a rise in anti-Semitism among political figures, among leaders and in society, that's going to be reflected in what happens in schools.
Yeah, just going back to the high school student who was, confident enough to share that social media post featuring the Nazi-themed football jersey. So he put it up on the social media, and you have to wonder why you would feel confident enough to post something like that.
Exactly, and I don't think they would have made that same decision to share racist things about another minority group. So I think that shows how normalized anti-Semitism has become, which is one of the greatest worries, that these students feel comfortable doing it. They didn't do it in private. It wasn't a quiet joke between two friends. They were proud to share it on their social media, which just shows that they thought it would be tolerated.
Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, a high school student, where would they be getting the confidence and, I suppose, the bottle to post something like that? And initially, where would they be getting their anti-Semitic thoughts from?
I think social media is one of the big problems here, particularly the social media that age group uses, which is TikTok.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of studies and statistics showing that these social media push negative messages, push divisive messages. So I'm not sure what exactly can be done about it, but compared to other forms of communication, that's one of the worst areas.
Mm. Yeah. Do you think these types of restorative approaches that we're getting are effective, or any stronger disciplinary action needs to be had? I mean, I suppose education's the most important thing, because if it's a young person, how educated are they? How much do they know about the Holocaust and all of that history? And I'm thinking, if they knew about it, maybe the anti-Semitism wouldn't happen. So is education perhaps more important, is what I'm saying, than discipline?
Yeah, I think that's a big issue, that youth these days, and even people who are a bit older, they don't know enough about the Holocaust. They don't understand it. They haven't studied it in school, and many of them wouldn't take the extra time themselves to learn about it. And if you don't know what happened, there's a real risk of minimizing what happened and repeating mistakes that happened in the past. So I think that the education department, it's important that all students should be learning about the Holocaust, about this terrible period in history.
Yeah, well, I know, and most of the people of my generation and perhaps a couple of generations down know what happened. And, post the war and in 1948, as you know, there was a resistance movement. And back then they said, the catchcry was, never again. This will never, ever happen to us again. Well, it's not happening to the extent it happened in Nazi Germany, but it's happening. It's anti-Semitism. And I just sit here yet again shaking my head as to how it could even be a thought in anyone's mind to bring back any thoughts of anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish behaviour.
Well, it's ironic that October 7 was the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust.
Yes.
And that's what sparked this new wave of anti-Semitism. And the statistics show it's up hundreds of % since then. So somehow that's, instead of having the opposite effect, that's motivated people. And now, as you mentioned, we're seeing politicians' offices vandalized. We're seeing hate preachers. We're seeing all across different levels of society just a general rise in anti-Semitism, which needs to be fought. And the case you mentioned, I think that was important. It's probably a case that should have been brought by police. It shouldn't have had to be brought by a private Jewish group.
No.
But I think the finding will be important in trying to push anti-Semitism back down again.
Oh, you mean Wassim Haddad?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, the judge, by the way, has ruled that series of lectures, finding them to contain racist and anti-Semitic material. So that's been finally ruled in a court, and I'll discuss that later. But as far as Holocaust education is concerned, it'll be mandatory in our state from 2027. Is that soon enough?
The sooner the better. I think it could start sooner. I mean, right now there's an urgent need for it, but obviously, anything is better than nothing.
Mm. Yeah, we recently had Bergen-Belsen survivor Eddie Boas on 2SM, and he, of course, spearheaded the Australian reunion of Holocaust survivors at Parliament House earlier in the month, and his reason for doing so was about shining a light in that darkness and triumphing over the hate. I mean, and I just watched recently, I stumbled on it, Robert, and I was horrified. I'd never seen it before. It was the official US government films that were taken. And it should be remembered, it's always the focus on Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. There were literally scores of concentration camps throughout Europe, Germany and Austria during that period. Just the message contributing to this mission that we've got to stop this, don't we?
We have to. Eddie Boas is a good friend of mine, and he came as a child to Australia, and he actually attended for a short period of time the same school that incident happened at. So it shows the circle there. But the same sort of anti-Semitism that led to what happened in Europe has happened all throughout history in different cultures, in different countries. It happens in a different way. Sometimes it's religious-based hatred, sometimes it's race-based hatred, and these days it's mostly manifesting itself as a hatred of the Jewish nation, of the state of Israel. So it morphs and changes, but the hatred is still always there, and we've always got to keep vigilant and fighting against it because it's an ugly part of human nature.
Yeah, ugly is the operative word. Robert, thanks for your time. It's good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Gregory, the CEO of the Australian Jewish Association. And I forget where I stumbled across those videos. I'm telling you, one of the most confronting things I've ever seen. And Eisenhower was there when these films were taken as the camps were liberated. And he insisted that the local German population in all those towns came and saw what went on in those concentration camps. He insisted they come. And they were horrified.